What's up, my people? It's been a few months, but I'm back, and I'm gonna try to keep this thing rolling consistently this time. And with this video, we're starting with a conversation that goes deeper than the headlines. This past season for HBCU football was a great one for the books, and my alma mater took home the HBCU football championship. Shout out to all my fellow Bulldogs out there. That was one for the ages. A great game that went into multiple overtimes, and after showcasing all of that talent on the main stage, we started to see a lot of players transfer out of the HBCU football landscape. And that ties back into one of the reasons why I started this channel. Every year we hear HBCUs don't have enough competition to showcase talent, which isn't true because every offseason, the HBCUs are losing their best players. What if the transfer portal isn't exposing the talent gap, but is really acknowledging the talent that has been overlooked in HBCU football for decades? And as we know, the transfer portal is here to stay, and it has changed college football forever. It's no longer about recruiting rankings no more. It's about college production, because you can come in as a 5-star recruit, but if you don't produce, you can easily lose your star ranking. And HBCUs has always been the home of developing players who were grossly overlooked in high school, but after showcasing their talents, they become impossible to overlook on the football field. So much so that Power 4 teams are knocking heavily at HBCU doors and purging every HBCU roster of some of its most elite talent. And first, I'm gonna start off with one of the clearest examples this past season. A lot of you guys are familiar with this player, but if you're not, I would like to introduce you to Marquis Gillis, who was this year's premier running back at Delaware State. He wasn't just productive, he was a central point of Deshaun Jackson's offense. This past season, Gillis rushed for over 1,100 yards. He scored 8 touchdowns, and he also averaged over 6 yards per carry. He did that against stacked boxes and defenses that were designed to stop them. His influence on his team's success this past season was so obvious that Arizona State didn't waste any time at getting this kid. So next year, Gillis will get his shot at playing for a Power 4 program, and it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in on that Arizona State roster after performing at a high level for a first-year coach, Deshaun Jackson. And next, we're going to discuss Ahmad Miller, who was a running back this past season for Jackson State. Miller was one of the most reliable backs in the SWAC. He finished the 2025 campaign with over 1,000 yards rushing, and he averaged over 6 yards per carry as well. He got a call from Syracuse and he committed right away. So Ahmad Miller will be showcasing his talents in the ACC next year. So Syracuse will have a monster at running back with multiple years left of eligibility. This isn't the first time we've seen an HBCU running back head to the ACC. Just last year, we saw Jamari Taylor from North Carolina Central transferred to Virginia and became their leading rusher in just one season. He had over 1,000 yards rushing on the Power 4 level, and he added 14 rushing touchdowns, which tied him 20th in the nation. So that is an example of what an HBCU running back could do for Power 4 universities. And when speaking of Ahmad Miller, like I said, he has multiple years of eligibility left, and this guy might jump off your TV screen next year whenever you're watching Syracuse play. And now we're going to talk about one of the most interesting transfers this past season, Andrew Body. Now, Andrew hasn't signed with anyone yet after having one of the best seasons we ever seen in recent history from a HBCU quarterback. And that tells you one thing: there's a lot of interest out there for this kid. Last season, he was named the HBCU National Player of the Year after putting up crazy numbers, which included his completion rate, which was over 70%. He also threw for 20 touchdowns and only 1 interception. Can you imagine just throwing 1 pick all season at the QB position? What that shows you: that kid has discipline and he makes the right decisions almost every time. And not only can he throw that thing, the kid had over 500 yards rushing, and he led Alabama State to one of their best seasons in the past few decades. One thing that would jump out to you about Andrew Body is that he doesn't chase highlights. He plays the game like it should be played at the quarterback position. Patient. He does something that is very important to any football organization. and that is protect the football. And another trait that he has is that he processes things quickly. He knows when to get rid of the ball and he knows when to tuck it and run. If you're looking for an example on how this path works for any team on the Power 4 level, just look back at what happened at Ole Miss this past season. Trinidad Chambliss was a backup quarterback. He was a transfer, but he wasn't designated to be their day one starter. But when their starting quarterback went down early in the season, they put this kid in and he showcased the talent that was needed to take those guys all the way to the semifinals of the college football playoffs. And that is something similar that Andrew Body could do for a big school, which will give them some type of security or safety net just in case something like that happened to their starting quarterback. And depending on how things work out with the NIL, he might be just chasing that bag. And we might see him as a day one starter in the group of 5, or he might want to take his chances at possibly stepping on the big stage for a Power 4 university. The landing spot for Andrew Body, we don't know, but my opinion is that if he heads to a Power 4 conference, it's going to be the ACC, because I'm starting to see this trend of ACC teams keeping their eyes on HBCU football more often than the other conferences. And that might be an advantage for the ACC to get back on top. Now we seeing what Miami is doing. They're putting the ACC back on the map with their superb play in this year's college football playoffs. And with the HBCU to ACC Pipeline, they might get better. But if Andrew Body decides to go with a smaller school, we can possibly see him go to a school in the Sun Belt, which will give him more opportunity to showcase his talents. But it's all up in the air right now, and we'll see real soon. And moving on to another Jackson State player, Travis Terrell Jr., a running back from Jackson State. And we know the reputation that Jackson State has when it comes to those Power 4 teams. Travis Terrell has multiple years of eligibility left, so he's a young running back who has a high ceiling. And he ended up committing to a Big Ten university, and that is Purdue. And through 2 seasons at Jackson State, Travis Terrell was able to amass over 1,000 yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. So we're gonna see if Purdue utilizes this kid as much as Jackson State did, or will they bench the guy? We don't know it, but you can see the explosiveness from his play. But only 2 years on the HBCU level, he has untapped potential. Also, HBCUs are known for developing great offensive line talent. As we discussed a while back, that the only player that was taken in the NFL draft last year was an O-lineman from North Carolina Central, which is an attest to that statement. And this year we've seen 2 O-linemen already hit the portal and are heading to Power 4 conferences. First up, Jaquan Sprinkle from North Carolina Central. You're starting to see how great a program NC Central is at developing players. And those teams in the ACC and the SEC are taking notice, as Jaquan will be transferring to LSU and he will be on their roster for the 2026 season, which means Lane Kiffin and his staff liked what they saw in the 6'3", 280-pound offensive lineman. Hey, Jaquan is actually from Orangeburg, South Carolina, which makes me wonder how South Carolina State allowed this kid to leave their backyard. Jaquan was a sophomore this past season, so he has 2 more years left, and we're going to try to follow this kid's career as well. And another old lineman that will be leaving the HBCU ranks is Trayvon Humphrey, who was an HBCU All-American offensive lineman last year, and he will be heading to the ACC to play for BC, Boston College. At 6'5" and over 300 pounds, Humphrey seems like someone who is ready to battle for a position, yo. He might be a day one starter, and he might help bring that grittiness back to Boston College offensive line. And with all of these movements throughout the college ranks, it's a lot on the coaches, especially the HBCU coaches, because if you're on the Power 4 level, you're losing some star talent or some potential star talent to some of the bigger, better known universities in your conference or outside of your conference, but you also have that pipeline to feed from the FCS level. And when you're a HBCU or another FCS school and players are being purged or probed from your team, you really gotta hit the recruiting trail and find diamonds in the rough. And you also gotta focus on development. You can't just look for talent. You have to look for a guy who has the stature but doesn't have the the perfection of his position or his skills, which makes it necessary for you to have a great coaching staff and a great training staff. And with limited resources, it makes things even harder, which is a testament to all of the great work that those HBCU coaches are doing. But one thing I haven't seen a lot of is HBCU coaches being bitter about players leaving. They just want those guys to have plans. Just don't jump into the portal and looking for some NIL money or anything else like that. They want them to really think about the path they're taking and how it will affect their football journey and their final destination of making it to the pro level. There will be some examples of players making the wrong decisions on every level of college football, which will make great example for future college football players on the FCS level as well as the FBS level. And that's all I got for you guys today, and I'm ecstatic to be back, and I want to at least make my promise to you guys to provide at least one upload per week, and we're gonna get this thing rolling, man. We're almost at 1,000 subs. I know I've been hit and miss here on this channel, but we're back, baby, for real this time. And I'm out of here. Peace.